Hi, Marcus.
Hey, Jerusalem.
How are you?
I am well. It is very, very, very cold in Connecticut. When I woke up this morning, it told me that it felt like 38 degrees outside.
Okay, that's cold.
Yeah, fall is here, like
It's
with a
here.
vengeance.
Yeah. Yes, we are having fall too, which is really exciting. So my birthday is in about a week,
Oh,
and
nice.
and my greatest wish is that it's actually fall on my birthday because in
Mhm,
Arkansas that's like hit or miss.
mhm.
And knock on all the wood, I think it might actually happen this year. Like I might
Yeah,
actually have fall on my birthday. So
yeah,
yes, I'm in a sweater.
yeah,
So this
yeah.
is I have a candle and a pumpkin. This is like so
I went apple picking, and I'll tell you more about that in my good thing
yeah.
there. But I saw all the pumpkins, like all the pumpkins everywhere, and I'm like, yes, fall is here. All the
Oh,
pumpkins are everywhere.
I love it.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so tell me about your good thing. Tell me something good for the week.
So I love to bake. And so I also love fall because apple picking is just such a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And just a few days ago, this lovely beauty was on an apple tree in Connecticut. And it, along with about 24 others, I didn't exactly count,
Right.
now are in my kitchen. Some of them have been devoured in a pie already, which I've made. But that's my good thing, is like the simple like pleasure of like picking an apple off of a tree, putting it in a fresh, like from scratch pie, like the crust from scratch, everything from scratch, and then eating it. That's my good thing. How
That's
about you?
amazing.
What's your good thing?
Yeah. Oh, and that apple, can I just say that apple looks like it's from a movie? Like
Yeah.
beautiful apple I have ever seen.
Yeah.
So my good thing this week is that I got to spend some very socially distant,
Mhm.
time with some of my best gal friends who are in our church small group. And it was
Mhm.
just about four of us. But it was just one of those things that I didn't realize how much I needed it.
Yeah.
I think we were all tired and it was all kind of, who was going to be able to show up and that sort of thing. But we sat outside. The weather was cool. We had sweaters on, which was
Yeah.
just so exciting. Just ridiculously
Yeah.
exciting. We were all spread out, but we could all still hear each other and talk. And we laughed so hard and,
Yeah.
shared a bottle of wine. And it was just amazing.
Yeah.
I have a dog in the room with me today who won't leave. So you hear shaking and whatever. So my apologies to everyone. I've done my best and he will not leave. But yeah, so real life here,
Yeah,
people.
for sure.
That's right. But yeah, just like that letting go and not having it wasn't work related. It wasn't even
Mhm.
church related. It wasn't stress. And we just laughed. We just
Yeah.
spent a lot of time laughing and sharing things. And so that was so good for my soul. Like it carried me through the rest of the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, like something you just said, like the fact that you said like it wasn't church related to me and it was just like people being together. To me, like one of the things that I think we miss so much in church is just the joy of being together. We're not working on something. We're not like we're just being together as a community, as a family. And I think that these days I sense a great hunger among people just to be with other people, especially people that they build those intimate connections with in their church community.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we're loving having outdoor church, which we're getting to have now, but there's not a lot of that standing around time because we're having to leave at a socially distanced pace. We sit apart from each other at a socially distanced pace. So you kind of already take, we kind of jokingly always talk about how you can't build like deep relationships with somebody just sitting on the pew once a week together. Well, now even more so because you're not even next to each other, right?
Right.
You've got like 8 feet between you and folding chairs, and so having those moments to just connect and not have an agenda and not feel responsible, like as a leader. And I think this, you probably experience this too. And for any other leaders who are, watching, sometimes there's a lot of at least I feel a lot of internal pressure. Nobody else puts this on me, but I feel the internal pressure to kind of keep everybody on task, right? Like if we're supposed to be talking about a book that we've all been reading for spiritual edification, like I feel like this burden to do that. And I don't always just let myself enter into the moment, the relationships without that task, voice behind me. So that was really good to be able to do that.
Yeah, just being with people. Yeah,
so important. So, which is why I'm super excited to be with our guests today, even like in this digital format. We've got Lorenzo Lebrija with us today. And I'm so excited. So Lorenzo and I have a fun little history in that he's often the host of a show called, I think it's called Inside Tech, Inside the Episcopal Church. He did it all during General Convention 2018 and some episodes since then. And he interviewed me about this current position that I'm in before everyone else knew. So we just happened an event together. The film crew was there, and so he was one of the first people that like I got to tell outside of my family, and just had a great time getting to know him through that process, and love just talking with him about what he does in this thing called TryTank. So let's get him on here and find out what's going on with him.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Hello.
Jerusalem, now that you mentioned that story, I remember we actually had to lock the doors so that nobody could come in while we were recording this because nobody could know. And we were like in the main room, the main stage, and we were recording and there was like, nobody can come in. This is like, And Marcus, I got to say, I also feel fall in the air. It was a cool 75 degrees here today, and we're only going up to 103. So I totally get where you're coming from. It does feel like fall's in the air. And
oh God,
if I wanted to get an apple, I just have to go to the store. And I think it might actually be applesauce. I don't know. We don't actually have it right now. So yeah. But I am so glad to be with you all. Yeah. Even in this, you can totally still be making relationships, even through the internet and through these different ways that, thank God that we have these ways is the way that we probably should look at it, right? That we're doing this. So yeah, I'm so glad to be with you guys.
Yeah, thank
you. Glad to have you. So tell us where you are. You have palm trees on the wall, so I think that's giving me a little bit of a hint. But for those who don't know why it's going to be 103 where you live, tell us where you are and like officially like what your job title is and all that stuff.
Oh wow, this is like right. So my name is Reverend Lorenzo. So I am in Palm Springs, California, hence the palms. That makes it all kind of cool. And yeah, it actually I know that fall is in the air, but you can tell the difference between 103 and 120. I'm just gonna say it's a dry heat, but you can. And the whole thing about a dry heat. So is my oven, and I don't hang out in there. I'm just saying, hot is just hot. And officially, I'm the director of TryTank, the Experimental Laboratory for Church Growth and Innovation. And anytime that I usually tell people those words, they're like, I understand you're speaking English, but I don't understand it in the order you just said it. Church growth, church innovation, those things don't generally go together. And we're trying to change some of that. We're right now we have done 56 experiments up until this point, and in all sorts of areas. So for example, and this is, I think, what best shows to people what TryTank is when I mention some of our experiments. So we did an experiment. Actually, it was our very first experiment. Is we created for the Alexa speaker, the smart speaker, we created a daily prayer app. So if you go, this is a good party trick, by the way, if you're in someone's house and they have an Alexa speaker, go up to it and say, hey, Alexa, open Episcopal prayer. And she will say, the Lord be with you. And you, of course, like an Episcopalian will say, and also with you. And then she will play for you the podcast from Forward Movement based on the time of the day, whether it's morning prayer or evening prayer. And right now we have a fairly regular, about 500 people that are coming to pray with it on a regular basis. And now Forward Movement has taken over that ministry. So that was one of the ones that we succeeded with. We've also worked on a digital collection plate so that people can just tap their credit cards as it goes by. Because if somebody has a $20 bill and a $1 bill, You're not getting the 20. So we have to make it easier for people that had less and less cash to be able to give as well. So we've done that. When we're action research, which means that we are in congregations doing all these experiments. We have over 100 partners right now that we've worked with, and we have about 150. And when COVID happened, of course, as you were just talking, we haven't been in churches, and that meant that we had to put a whole bunch of our experiments on pause. But we were also able to do a couple of experiments during this time. So one of the ones that we did, it was immediately, and we worked on a digital, what do we call it? Digital church guide. It was like a TV guide of the churches that were moving their services online, because you'll recall when this first started in March, not everybody was online yet. So people had to find, like, what's near me? How can I do it? So we did a little TV guide of that. That's now over, now that most of our congregations are online. We also created a thing called Dial a Priest. And I know it sounds sort of like a weird, sort of flippish name, but what it meant to do is we wanted people to be able to remember the name, so that even if they didn't remember the phone number, they could Google it. And up would come the phone number and they could call it. And it was a line where people could call for end of life, because you'll recall there were not enough chaplains. A lot of people were dying all at once, particularly in the New York area. And we wanted people to know that there was a way that they could get last rites, the administration at the time of death, even by telephone. And so we put out a call. And this is when we talk about innovation and how quick our church is. We went from having this an idea, to actually having this live with 100 people, 100 clergy members taking calls in 7 days.
Wow.
And one national phone number. And in the end, it ended up that for the people to whom it matters, who have administration at the end of life, it matters who gives it to them. Generally, they're Roman Catholic, so the Episcopal brand wasn't to them. But we took more than 13 hours worth of calls with our volunteers of people, and generally the calls were about 3 or 4 minutes. So it was a lot. It was like 300 and something calls that we ended up taking before we decided to just wrap it up. As the pandemic slowed down and people were able to have access to chaplains, we sort of put that away. So, and that's what we do. That is what TryTank is. A situation presents itself, because all of us who've ever been in ministry, at one point or another, we've said, what if we did it this way? Or what if we did that? And we're either busy, or we don't have the resources to do it. We just don't have the time. Generally now, the clergy is less than full-time in a lot of places. So, and lay people may not feel like they can. And of course, never underestimate the power. Well, we've never done that, or the other, which is we've always done it that way. So why would we change it? And so this is an opportunity. We'd like to think of ourselves as that place that we take those ideas and we actually have the time, resources, and actually be able to do those experiments. So that's what TryTank is in a nutshell.
So as you're talking, like, all of my synapses are just like firing. I just got finished reading a book called The Lean Startup, and it has nothing to do with church really, but it really has everything to do with, it has everything to do with like trying and innovating. And one of the most compelling things I've taken away from this book is when the author, Eric Ries, I forgot, I don't know how you pronounce his name.
I think it's
Ries. But he says, if you can't fail, you can't learn.
Yeah.
And I that sticks with me, because so much of what it means, so much of what people think it means to be a leader in the church is to succeed at all the things. And so like there seems to be in many places a sort of lack of capacity to like fail and learn, and like to have that be built into the process. I wonder if you can talk a bit about the good news that arises from failure, right? This is a show about good news. I wonder if you can talk about like the good news that rises from the ashes of something that has failed.
Wow, you put it so poetic, when the ashes. Like, oh, I don't think this is going to work. So let me tell you a couple of things there. One of the things that, and I can certainly tell you about some of the experiments that have failed, and I'd love to. When they offered me the job officially to come become director of TryTank, I was like, this is so exciting. This is the best thing ever. Amazing. And I said, whoa, hold on a second, Lorenzo. And so I had to ask one question. I said, when we look back in 3 to 5 years, how will we know that we succeeded or not? And this is the best answer that was given to me. It's like, because we will have failed more often than we've succeeded, which means we're trying. And I was like, I'm in. I was afraid they were going to say, because we found the silver bullet, we saved the Church of God, whatever it might be. Is like, whoa, good luck with that. Only one person had to die for this church, and that was like 2,000 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. So what we like to do, what we look at it is, and I think, going to your point, Marcus, I think when we're doing this for the church, there's also the psychological thing that says we're doing this for God. And so I think we add an extra sort of layer of like, if I fail, I am failing not just my little congregation or my big congregation. I'm failing Jesus. I'm failing God. Is this going to, like St. Peter going to be up there like, oh, remember that? You were this close to getting in, Lorenzo. Sorry. So we actually hope that part of what we're doing is modeling for people that failure is a real thing, and that is how we will find the Spirit, and sometimes be like, well, the Spirit's not there. We tried that. I can tell you, for example, that the Spirit was not in a thing we tried called Spin Church. If you've ever gone to a Soul Cycle, it's a spinning studio where you do the bicycles. But when you go in, the lights are dim. They have candles on the wall. It says, find your soul. And then when it starts, the instructor's like, there's no yesterday. There's no tomorrow. There's only this day that's been created for you. I'm like, throw in a Jesus and you've got yourself a And so the thinking was, are people finding their spirituality through group fitness? People that perhaps aren't going to church, are they finding that sort of community that Jerusalem was talking about at the beginning? Are they finding that through group fitness classes? So we're like, well, why don't we find out? Let's create a group fitness class, but that is actually a church. It'll actually have like a service, and it'll have a Eucharist, and it did not work. But we had great response. People really liked it. People signed up, and nobody showed up. Yeah. And ultimately, we tried it for 8 weeks, 2 months in one area, one congregation. And ultimately, what we did discover, because those people that signed up, we were able to speak to them, is they already had a group fitness class. So those who are already finding their spirituality through group fitness classes are already finding their spirituality there. Yeah. So this was no different than just opening up another church in front of another church saying, come to our church, we're different. It's like, if anything, we were longer because we had the exercise and we had a mass. So that just made it longer. That's even worse. So the thing, though, is that we got to try. And we have failed. We have failed. One of the times we failed, I actually inadvertently hurt people by one of the experiments that we did. And after that, we decided, much like doctors, our sort of rules now say, first, do no harm. If an experiment is going to harm anybody, even by mistake, even like without meaning to, then we stop it. We don't do that. We can find many beautiful, wonderful ways of reaching people for God that will never hurt anyone, and Jesus would never hurt anyone. So there's no need to go down that road. And so we learned that, though, by trying. And so each day, each time, in all of our experiments, we're very honest when we say we failed, and here's why we think we failed. It just didn't work. Some of them are just too expensive. It's like, it seemed like a good idea. It just didn't work. Another ones, they're just a little bit too far into the future, I think. I wanted to create something where people could actually, on their phone, be sort of judging the sermon as it's going on live. So and they would be like, oh, I'm losing them. Let me say. I couldn't find anyone to work with us on that particular. I don't know why. I mean, really, come on, people.
Oh, I love it. This is so good and so helpful, because I know that a lot of people right now across the wider church are having to try things, right? Everybody is having to try things. And I was on a call the other day and doing a webinar workshop, and had this, I knew I had just thrown a million ideas, right? Like a million ideas at everyone. And somebody, some sweet, brave soul put in the chat, like, this is all great and too much. Like, how do I know what to pick? So what is your advice? I mean, I know what I know what I said, which is figure out what your congregation actually loves and go deep into that. But what else? What other advice do you have as people are trying to juggle how much online to do and what new things to do? And do they need all the fancy new technology? And what about hybrid church and formation? And what's your kind of your wisdom to people who in this moment are even afraid to start because they're so overwhelmed, or to pivot? They're scared to pivot. Like, we've done it this way for 6 months. How do we turn again and address where we are? So Yeah. What kind of wisdom do you have? Well, you know.
I just love the fact that I'm spewing wisdom. Look, listen. Say something wise. No, I think that the first thing that a congregation should do is figure out really who they are, going to your point that you just made, because you need to be authentic to yourself. Just because someone somewhere is doing something that you think is just cool or whatever, it doesn't mean that it is right for your congregation. It doesn't mean that it's right for your context. So knowing who you are and where you are will lead you to find those areas. So I just finished a draft of a book that I wrote called How to Try Design Thinking in the Church that will actually walk people. We at TryTank use 3 steps, 3 simple steps, and I'll just go through them here. You should still get the book for the record when it comes out. To be like, Lorenzo, you gave away the, you know. First is, and this assumes that you already sort of have a pretty clear mission of who you are. But the first thing you need to do is you need to actually do what we call the insight phase. You need to discover. So let's say you have a question like, who should we be reaching out to in our community? Well, what you need to do is figure out who's around your community. So go to the wider church's website, go to episcopalchurch.org, figure out around your congregation. They have some great reports there. Figure out, just also observe, interview people, talk to people, get a good idea of who's around you before you start to figure out like, oh, that seems like an opportunity for us. Find out also from secondary research, like who are the types of people that are going to churches right now. I think a great opportunity for the Episcopal Church is the fact that right now, 10,000 count them, 10,000 people, baby boomers, are retiring each and every day. That, and those we know from research are people who are seeking meaning in their lives right now, because the first third of their life was mostly about their kids and family. The second third of their life was about their job, mainly in their careers. And now in this third step, this third phase of their life, what they really want to do is to figure out, what was it all about? What was the meaning of this all happening? So that's an opportunity. So that's number 1. Do some research, figure out, basically discover some insights. 2, once you have those insights, then you can brainstorm ideas. Then you can come up with all the ideas that get you closer to that one, the insights that you've gained. And by having the insights, because most of us begin at that second, we begin, we want to reach people. Let's just come up with ideas before doing any of the insights. And so it would be like me saying, hey, everyone, let's just go west. And we'd be like, well, I guess we can just get in a car and start going west, I suppose. Saying, hey, everyone, let's go to Los Angeles. Then you're like, oh, we could fly there, or we could drive there, or we could take a train. We could do all these different ways when you're more specific because of the insights. And then finally, the third step is you just try it. You come up with a minimum viable prototype. You don't have to, like when we did the Spin Church, we didn't have to go out and build a spinning studio and get all the bicycles and advertise. No, we rented one on a Saturday afternoon for a couple of, for 8 weeks. And then we figured out it was relatively inexpensive to do and to drive. And we advertised it on Facebook. You figure out whether or not there's a there there. They're fairly simple. So that's what I would encourage congregations to do, is figure out your context, get those insights, come up with ideas, and then just go and try several of them and see which one feels right for you. Because that is truly where the Spirit is. And all of this, by the way, is guided and should be guided by prayer. In every step of this, we should be inviting the Holy Spirit and Jesus to help us reach people.
As you're talking, especially about the Spirit, what came into me was sort of in the Gospels where Jesus talks about the Spirit blowing where it will, right? And like, so even this idea that even if you were to try something this week, it doesn't mean you're committing to doing that thing until Jesus returns, right? Like there's a sense in which like we can try this thing on and it can rock for a couple of weeks, and then maybe we try something else, right? To constantly be in this space of learning and experimentation, I think that can really grow us in our discipleship if we stay in this learning space for a very long time.
Although it's 2020 and there's like a gazillion earthquakes and hurricanes and everything else, so Jesus might be around the corner for all of us. Actually, I think the church provides us with beautiful short little seasons, right? Advent or Lent are great seasons for 2 reasons. One, they're short. And two, they lead up to the days when most people that normally don't come to church will be in church.
Yeah.
So you can do something for a short season in Advent, 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden you have Christmas when people are going to want to come to church. Or for Lent, you do it for the 5-6 weeks, and then you end up with Easter, which is when people come back to church as well. So those 2 seasons are perfect to try something and be like, oh, we tried it. And then and you literally set out saying, we're only going to try it for Advent, and then be like, oh, backed by popular demand because people love it so much.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I love the idea of using our calendar. Use the liturgical seasons, people.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Lorenzo, this has been amazing. I know Marcus and I could both like pick your brain and just talk for hours and hours and hours. But I want to let you get back to trying things and failing. And
to be clear, sometimes we do want to succeed. I already see the letters, dear bishops. No, we do want to succeed in some of them.
That's fair. And they have. They're doing wonderful. But yeah, before we leave, can you tell us if someone wants to know about TryTank or get involved with TryTank, how can they do that?
Sure, absolutely. So the easiest way is TryTank. That's TryTank.org. TryTank.org is where we put everything there. We put all of our experiments, where we are with them, copies of our newsletters, and everything else is on there. We put a whole bunch of resources that are there, so you can just go. Our partner congregations are listed there. But once a month, we only do a newsletter that comes out once a month. And actually, we have an open rate of about 60%. So the people that get it really do want to see it and read it. So you can sign up for it at TryTank.org and just get the newsletter once a month where it's a long newsletter, but it tells you everything. And it also has, if we're looking for partners to join us in experimenting with us, there might be an experiment that you're like, oh my God, I totally would love to do that in our congregation. This is perfect. Then do that. Also, if anybody just wants a conversation partner, if you want to try something and you are stuck, you just maybe don't know what the next step is, I set aside certain time per week, several hours per week, to just have those conversations with congregations all over. So Lorenzo at TryTank.org will get you directly to me. Lorenzo, Lorenzo at TryTank.org, and I'd be happy to set up a time so that we can chat.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is exciting. And yeah, and also one thing I know that people will be excited is you don't have to be a mega church to join up. You like to have churches in every different possible category, right?
We need the small churches and we need the large churches, small communities and large communities, because we want to see and we always try things in more than one place, because you never know if it's like, if I give Jerusalem something, I just know it's going to happen. It may still be the worst idea ever, but Jerusalem's going to make it happen, right? So you got to make sure that the right city is there and that the right, sometimes things just don't happen in Connecticut because it's too cold. I'm just saying,
It is.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Lorenzo. It was so good to catch up with you. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon, especially as your new book comes out and some other projects. So.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. A pleasure to be with you, and God bless you all.
God bless
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Whew, did that just fill your tank or what?
I mean, I love just dreaming, and I love all of that. And so I'm so fired up after this conversation.
I know.
Yeah.
I keep that, I love my work with the wider church, but the only time that I truly miss parish ministry is when I see some of the projects, because I think, if I was in a parish, I could be doing that.
Yeah. Well, and also like my work around formation and discipleship, like it's all really about learning. And I the thing that Eric Ries says in his book about, if you can't fail, you can't learn, is something that I live by. Like, how do we get people into a space where we're willing to just try something for the sake of the gospel? I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I love it too. It's so exciting. And there's never been a better time to try.
Absolutely.
Than right now, and I think having the freedom to fail and to go in with that attitude maybe will take a lot of pressure off people and be really good news.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah. All right, my friend. So good to see you, and go bake some more pies. And
I will. There's so many apples in my kitchen. So many apples.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So jealous. We have pumpkins. We need to do a trade, right?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for participating. As Lorenzo said, don't worry, we won't break the church by trying new things. And it can be good news. So we hope that you have your own Tell Me Something Good moments this week, and that you will share those out with your community, because we all need good news these days.
Absolutely.
All right. See y'all next time.
Bye-bye.